Welcome to another edition of Unplugged. We tick towards a Friday night game, a rare Friday night game for the Saints. We have had a couple this season. An important game in terms of getting things back on track. A strange, and I was just actually literally just before we jumped on to record this, it's rare that we recorded this early in the week, was reading the Red, White and Black Boys review of the game, and our mate Rory penned it this week and made a good point that you feel a little bit helpless. And it was a bit of a helpless night. It was a strange game of football, a game that didn't really flow at any point due to turnovers, due to injuries, due to far too many free kicks being paid, 52, I think it was in the end, including about what felt like 20 in a row to Brisbane after half time. But it was a tough watch. It was a game that at half time, I genuinely felt that we would probably win. But then things went wrong. Obviously, the loss of Mitch Owens just before half time, then McKenzie just after, then Jones and a few other bits and pieces. It doesn't hide the fact that we were dominated largely after half time. Brisbane dominated territory, clearances, had far more shots than we did. But we hung in there. It was a game where we looked like we were outgunned, but we showed a bit of ticker. We fought, we battled away, we hung in there, and it just got away from us a little bit at the end. It's not a game to necessarily be ashamed of. There were reasons that contributed to the loss. We don't know whether we would have won without those factors. We may never know the answer to that. But it was a frustrating night, one where the club didn't disgrace itself, but at the same time could have done a few things a lot better than it did. In order to get that result. So, yeah, I mean, you're always annoyed to lose, but there was a bit in it that you could potentially take away, even if Brisbane could have beaten us by a bit more had they have kicked straight. Nick, you've been in the COVID ISO. You were on the bench last week, replaced by Phil, but we've got you back, not fighting fit, but getting a little bit closer. What was your summation of Saturday?
Yeah, glad to send Phil back to the B team where he belongs. But no, look, it was a tough watch, like you said. It was even in the first half where I thought we were probably clearly the better team, and like you, I thought at that point that if we could kick straight from there, that we had them, because I thought that we were playing better than them. Even though we weren't playing great football, I still thought that we were better than them, and that was a real positive for me to come out of this game. Is that even when we weren't playing great football, and we didn't play great football for the entire game, but we were still competitive with one of the best teams in the competition. And, you know, we saw that when we played some pretty good football against Melbourne, you know, a month or two back. And even then, you know, Melbourne blew us away through that period. But we weren't playing great footy against Brisbane, and we were really competitive. We held them at bay, and probably deserved to be 3 or 4 goals up at halftime, I thought. Obviously, we know what happened in the second half, but I think that was the biggest positive, is that we stayed tough, even with men down. We weren't playing great footy. The odds were against us. Brisbane obviously got their shit together and dominated us, like you said, in the second half. That I think they beat us in basically every major metric, with and without the football in the second half. But we still stuck with them for the main part. We didn't drop our bundle. We didn't lose ourselves. And I think in previous years, we probably lose that by 10 or 15 goals in the second half in that sort of situation. And, you know, a little bit like the GWS game, I know we won that game in the end, but, you know, we stuck with it. We fought tough. And I think that's reflective in the type of footy team that we are at the moment, is that we don't drop our bundle. We don't get blown away. And, you know, I think the biggest con for me is that I really want to see us play great football. I want to see us play our style of footy against good teams. We did it for patches against Geelong. I want to see us do it against the Brisbanes, against the Melbournes, against, you know, Sydney in a couple of weeks. I want to see us do it against the good teams, and I want to see us, you know, earn the results that brings with it. And you know, I'm hoping that over the next few weeks we'll see that a little bit more. But yeah, all in all, it was a tough watch, but there were plenty of positives to take out of it, I thought.
Yeah, there was a match that had a lot of frustrations. I mean, some of the umpiring both ways. I mean, we were the beneficiaries of some poor umpiring. So were they, clearly. Obviously, but some of the obvious ones that were missed. I mean, Higgins getting shoved into the fence effectively when he missed that shot just before quarter time, and other bits and pieces. But Yeah, it was a weird one. As I was saying, I thought at halftime we'd probably win, but I thought 5 minutes into the third quarter we were fucked. And then obviously it turned a little bit back the other way, but never really got going again. And it felt like there was just one layer after the other. So at halftime you thought, oh, it's okay, Linett's come on, we've still got a bit of run. Then Mackenzie goes down and you're like, oh, now it's going to be tough. But then they lost Orko and you thought, well, that balances it out. And then you find out at 3/4 time Jones is out and you're like, that might be a little bit too much. But H, how did you assess that? It was a slow death.
Well, after what I said last week, I almost turned off after 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I made the big point of us getting clearances from Gresham and then they're marking it straight away. Not only did it happen our first possession of the game, we get the clearance, Gresham kicks it long, and Brisbane marking their 50. We get back from half time, and the exact same thing happened again. I'm just going, we're seeing this every single time. And as soon as that first one happened, I've just gone, yep, I know exactly how tonight's going to go. It's going to be an absolute, I guess, drill. It was just going to bug us all night. That sort of turnover, that sort of things just not going our way. It was, I could just read it like this is what's going to happen tonight. It's just going to be pain, and that's pretty much how it turned out. So, yeah, it was one of those ones you look at, go, we had the opportunity to be far enough ahead at some point to put them away. I said that we needed to get them early and get them quiet, and we got the opportunity to do that, but we just didn't make the most of them. So we, really, really need to take those opportunities when they do come to you, because they don't give you those opportunities very often up there. And we could have been up, 5-6 goals to 1 at some point, the way it looked, and probably should have. We just let them back into it. They're not finishing at our end, and a few silly mistakes in our defensive lines that just cost us goals that you're looking going, they are the sort of goals we don't need to give away, or they're the goals we have to kick. And yeah, it's just one of those really frustrating nights, and it'd be the sort of game that we don't want to turn up next week and do those same silly things again, because it'd be even more painful to lose to Essendon.
So I want to ask you guys something, because I was obviously not in a great way on Saturday night, and I actually watched the game with my wife. And for those of you who know Amelia, know she's not a huge football fan. She doesn't watch most games, and this is probably the first game she's watched in about 6 or 7 years. But one of the things that she said to me, I guess around 3/4 time or late in the second half, was that there seems to be no connection with our blokes from defense to midfield to forward line. There's no cohesion. And it's something that we've spoken about a lot, I think, on this show, but also, around the club. It's been spoken about the connection and the team building and all that sort of stuff that there is at the club at the moment. But what did you guys see, I guess, on the night? Well, did we do something different with the Lions doing something that stopped us and our usual game style? Or what was it on the night in the moment that felt like we were so incredibly disconnected?
Yeah, I think for me it was just the way the whole game was played. I think they were the same in many respects. It was, and I'm not putting that on umpiring, for example, because umpiring was one byproduct of it. I think when you get games where it's whistle happy like that, where it's whistles every 10 seconds, and it felt like every contest there'd be a free kick to somebody. And I think those games, even if you look at the scoring in the first half, there were 8 goals kicked in the first half, and I reckon 7 of them came from free kicks. Nearly every score in the first half from either side was a free kick, including the double goal that Brisbane got. So I think it was a combination of both sides' ball use was poor, whether that was condition related, and the stop-start nature of the game. So the poor skills has got nothing to do with umpiring, and the umpiring didn't necessarily go one way or the other, but I felt it was an over-whistled game, which didn't allow the contest to flow in any way.
Yeah, the conditions apparently were as dry as they've been for some time up there, so there was no dew on the ground. The ground wasn't wet from rain. So apparently the conditions were absolutely perfect to play in. So skill errors really should not have come into it. The only reason for any skill error should have been massive pressure. But that seems to be what Brisbane kind of did. I sat there, I don't know how many times where we've struggled to get down the ground, just a kick, around, and just going, we're struggling to move the ball up, kick by kick. And then all of a sudden, they've got it in their back line after we've kicked it long and they've cut it off. And also 1 kick, 2 kick, 3 kick, they're back in their forward line. You go, how are they moving it so easily? I don't know if I've been saying I'm not a huge fan of this zoning off we're playing. I feel like we're standing 10, 15 meters away from every single player on the field, just going, oh, I'll get to the mark if they mark it. We're just giving them the easy ball too much. And I think some teams really open that up. And that's kind of what Brisbane did when they got the opportunity. In that third quarter, it was just kick, goal. They just ran the way how they wanted to. There was no, we didn't cut them off. We didn't get to the contest. It was just easy marks. So I think we're sitting too far back off them. It's starting to really frustrate me just seeing seeing us struggle to move the ball up the field. Then all of a sudden they've got 6 free players. And the biggest confusion for them is which one do I kick it to? Because there's just so many options available because we're just sitting too far back.
We spoke about that, H, I reckon, after round 1 when we first had Phil on the show, and we talked about how at times we can look really, really stagnant. We can win the ball and we stop and prop, and instead of taking that first option, and I thought that was one of the things that stopped us on Saturday night, was that there were so many times when we didn't take the first option to move the ball, whether it was a quick handball out or handball to someone running past or a short kick sideways, just to move the ball, that we'd take possession and stop and look around and have a think. And I think there are a couple of guys that tended to do that. I don't know if it was pressure or not, but yeah, you're right. I think it's kind of it's the biggest thing that stops us. I think we are our biggest enemy at times in that we don't play our game. And I don't know if it's a confidence thing or whatever, but there's no reason that we shouldn't be confident to play our game of footy, because we know that when we play our brand, we do it well. But it's like you, H, it's my biggest annoyance, I think, is that so often we go into our shell and we try and play safe, but we play our best footy when we're not doing that.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. And I know a few weeks ago I was comparing a lot of matches to movies, and I think that's probably not a bad shout. For me, it was probably like watching the film Braveheart, in the sense that you always felt you were against the odds. You were going pretty well for most of the film, but just too many things went wrong. There are times where you look like you're about to get on top, and there was that breakdown in communication, like at the end when the other mob should have flanked and they would have won that battle at the end of Braveheart, and then he ends up getting captured and dies in the end. So it felt a bit like that, like you were pushing shit uphill, but had your moments where you look like you were about to get it done. But we look towards the votes. An interesting one. I think our defence held up pretty well, and I wanted to give a vote to Jack Sinclair. Pretty solid game. Not his best game. He made some mistakes, but I gave him a vote. I gave 2 votes to Seb Ross. Again, probably not his best game, but I thought he was pretty good through the middle for most of the game. Solid in the clearances, plenty of touches. But I thought probably our best player, and I think he was a guy that has been a touch vulnerable in recent weeks, was Jimmy Webster, to be honest. I think of our defensive group, I thought he was a really solid player, and honourable mentions to people like Battle. But I gave my 3 votes to Jimmy Webster. Nick?
I think this could be one where potentially we see different votes. I think quite often we're on the same page with a lot. And I think there's probably that core group of probably 8 or 10 guys that are all, whether honourable mentions or votes or whatever. And I gave my honourable mentions. I thought Jimmy Webster was fantastic in the first half. I thought he was probably our best player in the first half. And I thought as the team dropped off in the second, I mean, they still worked real hard and they battled, but I thought that his impact and influence probably dropped a little bit in the second half. I thought Jack Sinclair was good without being great. I thought Seb Ross was very good again. I thought Ben Patton was probably up there. I thought it was one of his better games for the season. And Tim Embry I think, as he always does, battled hard. I gave 1 vote to Cal Wilkie, played 100% of game time. And we know that, being 2 or 3 men down necessitated that, especially in the second half. But 8 marks, yeah, he only had 11 touches, but he went at 91, 92%. And it's just kind of the barometer for that back half. I thought Brad Crouch was very good, 26 touches, and in the trenches, 10 tackles and 6 score involvements, and kicked a goal himself, which was really important. Josh Battle, I gave 3. I thought probably wasn't his best game, but I think contribution across 4 quarters never died. I thought he worked really, really hard. He ran, he covered a lot of ground, 17 touches, 8 marks, 5 intercepts, and 450 meters gained. I think showed the real balance of his role from intercept mark, defensive type player to trying to kickstart offense and trying to move the ball forward, and his skill level as a distributor. I thought he was really, really important. And across the 4 quarters, probably in my eyes, our most impactful player, and just keeps improving week after week, and has really kind of solidified his spot in that back 6. And, this guy could be anything as a centre half back or as a third man up in defence. Just keeps getting better, and I've been really impressed with him this year. H, where did you see your votes?
Yeah, it is quite a mix, as you just mentioned. I'm going to give votes to 3 players you've both mentioned, but again, a completely different order to both of you. So I've given 1 to Josh Battle. So for everything you've mentioned there, I thought he had a great game. There was a couple of times there I thought he got a little bit lost. He might have been a situation where he kind of had a few different choices to make, and just unfortunately made the wrong one a couple of times. But I can't knock the effort. It was basically the way we look at it. We're giving the backman votes this week, because if it wasn't for the backman, we would have been annihilated, I think. So, I mean, Brisbane kicking inaccurately and our backman actually standing up at the same time is the reason we're not looking at a massive loss. But yeah, Josh Battle's game was great. Gave 2 to Cal Wilkie. I don't understand the lack of recognition from his game. I thought his game was actually really, really good. I didn't see him in any of the media votes. I didn't see him in any of this, but he just kept popping up, and he took 8 marks in the back line. So there's 8 opportunities he stopped straight away, because I'm pretty sure all his marks came off, or except maybe 1 or 2 came off Brisbane kicks. They're all intercept marks.
He wasn't even named in the club's best in the match report.
Yeah. So, and I've seen all these, and I'm just thinking, what game was I watching? Because yeah, again, another player that if he didn't have a good game, we are getting beaten by a mile. And to go with Parko, yeah, Jimmy Webster, the things he did, we haven't seen that this year. He had a brilliant game. It was the sort of thing that I was looking at the start of the year when I said, who do we need to play well this year to play well? And I said, Jimmy Webster. We need him playing good football. He has been solid, but what he did on the weekend, if he plays like that when we're all playing well, we're going to fly. Because, yeah, he intercepts the marks, picking up like ground balls cleanly and getting it out of their 50, beating his opponent. That's the big thing. He's beating his opponent and getting all these possessions and giving us drive and opportunity up the ground. And it's a sort of, I'm looking back a few years now and saying that's how he played a few years ago when he was at his absolute top. And it'd be nice to see him launch from that, because he's done it against a good opposition. Let's see you do it against everyone else, because that sort of football is going to get us a long way if he can continue to play like that.
Absolutely. We've got a bit later on in terms of awards to go through, but our next special guest, for those who reflect back to 2002, we played a draw against Sydney, which has been described in some parts as one of the dullest games of football ever played, but in others, it's one of the most fascinating games of football ever played. And it was a significant game in St Kilda's history for what it did launch from that point on. And a man who was integral to the key moment in that match joins us on the podcast now.
He's kicked free, he's gone to Wolf, he's kicked the goal! Go to a commercial break, get us some money! Surely the Saints can't win from here. That's not 15 metres. Seymour. Cross look out! Come on! Ruby runs in! He kicks the goal! He's hit the post! He's hit the post! Wolf has hit the post! Oh! Scores are level at Colonial Stadium, 32 and a half minutes in, and Rod Butters cannot believe it.
Well, our next guest enjoyed a 30-game career with the Saints between the year 2000 and 2004, and quite an eventful period and some very eventful moments over that journey as well. Went across to WA and had a very successful football career in the Waffle. And Saints fans in the West would have seen our next guest prior to the Fremantle game earlier on this year, which actually kick-started a few things for us. I speak of Daniel Wolf. Daniel, thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me. Awesome.
Now, what does life entail these days? You're still in WA, obviously, where you played footy after the AFL. What are you up to?
Yeah, pretty much. Come over here with Craig Callahan and Heath Black back in the days, and it's only going to be here for a few years. And 14 years later, I'm still here, married with 2 kids. So, just working civil construction, supervisor, do service locating and all that stuff for big projects. Pretty much got to locate services under the ground before, obviously, they put a bucket in the ground so they don't, hit live gas or water or stuff. So it's interesting, like something I never thought I would have done after my footy career. So yeah.
Daniel, we'll take you back to the very beginning, but you were drafted to the Bulldogs in the 99 preseason draft and spent a season on their list. What was that like before obviously coming to the Saints?
No, it was good. I mean, I did a pre-season at Hawthorn first. So, did training with Hawthorn at Glenferrie Oval back in 1998. They were going to pick me up as a rookie at the time, and Western Bulldogs got me in the pre-season draft. Went there, played in a pre-season game, an NZ Cup back then or whatever at Waverley Park, and pretty much first, I was just unlucky with injuries. Probably the first quarter ran around the wing, and then someone shot me in the foot. So I was pretty much stress fracture out for 16 weeks. Got back in the side, still got in the top 10 of the best, fairest and reserves. But at the end of the day, Terry Wallace pretty much pulled me in his office and pretty much said, you haven't showed us something this year. And I was just like, well, how do I do that when I haven't been on the field? So they listed me and, went to St Kilda on the supplementary list and pretty much went from there. So never gave up pretty much.
So you actually ended up coming into the club at a point where you'd argue we probably had our best recruitment in club history. You look at we brought in Revolt, Kaczynski, we brought in other players from other clubs like Garrick and Lawrence, and just a whole bunch of names. And it was sort of, I guess, almost a new club by the time you've arrived there with the personnel changes of coaching and players and just everything. How did it all settle in when you yourself, you're quite new, but what was the transition for the whole club at that point?
It was huge, I suppose, because back then you had a supplementary list and Tim Watson was the coach. So I was still part of the club, but I was just playing twos and, it was still pretty big back then. So I still had 1 year up my sleeve and then got drafted, obviously, under Blighty, Ken Hinkley and all that. And, I still remember the photo. I've still got the photo of the picture of Marabba and us all standing together, Mark Gale, obviously Rewald, Kaczynski, G-Train, Blackie, Callahan, all them. And, it was surreal. I was just proud to be drafted again and have a second chance sort of thing. And Blighty, to me, obviously, all that crap that happened during the year, whatever, for me, gave me my first game, got sacked a few weeks later. But at the end of the day, I always idolised that. He was the one that gave me the opportunity to play one game. And he was awesome. I mean, yeah, to me, he was good. And the pre-season training was the hardest thing I've ever done. But, it was just, you look up to him. He's a legend. So at the end of the day, I know stuff didn't work out. Grant Thomas was awesome after that. So, yeah, good.
It was a strange start to your career. As you say, you play your first game at the Gabba against the team that eventually wins the flag. Your second game is Cripps' comeback match and Malcolm Blight's last game. And your third game is Grant Thomas's first game. You're actually probably in our best players in the Adelaide game and the Bulldogs game. What was that like? It's a bizarre start to your career. A lot going on.
Yeah, no, it was good. I remember, Brisbane, I mean, flying. I was still, obviously, you're still part of the side. And you train for these boys, but once you go to the airport, about to board the plane to go up, and this is it. This is your first game, and you fly up to the Gabby room with Barry Hall. Obviously, you don't want to say too much because you might get punched in the head. Bit nervous, but yeah. And then that was literally Friday night. So all Saturday, you're pretty much, preparing for the game, and then you get on that bus, and I ran through the banner. The boys let me run through the banner. Still got the photo. It's awesome. And from there on, I remember I thought I might get in the third, fourth quarter, whatever. And pretty much 5 minutes in the first quarter, I think Bradshaw kicked about 3 on Mark Gale or whatever. And pretty much I went on and played on Bradshaw. And I think he only kicked a few more on me, which I was pumped. But I've had a pretty sore neck seeing the ball go over my head about 28 times because we got pumped by about 100 points. And then, Adelaide, he put me on the wing, and I suppose not many of the players knew who I was, as far as didn't give me much respect. So I just went out and played. And the best thing was against Western Bulldogs. We lost to that, but just to pretty much show Terry Wallace that, stiff shit, you lost me. And I think I had 28 touches or whatever. I remember Brad Johnson and Chris Grant, all the boys come up to me and saying you did well. So, yeah, it was good. But, yeah, just love playing AFL footy. And, yeah, that was it.
That game against Adelaide, I think only a few blokes had more of the pill than you did that day. I think Cripps, Andrew Thompson, and Aaron Hamill had a couple more touches than you. You were pretty good that night in what was a tough loss for the footy club. And obviously, as mentioned, that was Malcolm Blight's last game. But one of the, I guess, the points from that night was that he pulled all the boys together after the game onto the ground and had a chat. What was that like? Do you remember much of that period? And was there any inkling about what was to come later that week?
Yeah, not real. I suppose, I don't know, you read, obviously in the media and that, you sort of know, you don't read too much in it, but I don't know, personally myself, you probably thought maybe that was it. I don't know, even the way he came across Malcolm Blight. But I still remember, I think it was a Thursday when, that's our day off on the Thursday. I remember I was sleeping in, whatever, and got a phone call from the club. The phone rang about 20 times. You have to come straight to the club, and literally got in the car in the driveway and heard it on the news before I even got to Moorabbin. I had a half an hour drive to get there, and pretty much got there, and there was cameras everywhere. And I actually got there a little bit late, just quietly, and just heard the last couple of sentences of Blighty pretty much saying that was it. And so I don't know. Like I said, for me, Blighty gave him my first game. I still look up to him, and if I saw him tomorrow, I'd shake his hand. And it's a privilege to play AFL footy is huge. And but that week was massive. And then Grant Thomas took over, but he always backed me. To the day I got the list, it was pretty much due to injuries, and he always believed in me. But at the end of the day, everything in life happens for a reason. I was just injury prone, and I was just glad to play one AFL game, let alone 30. So and play with legends, absolute legends of the club. So yeah.
To get to your first win, basically we're going into the last round.
Yeah,
not expecting a whole lot really. It's a cold, wet Friday night, and coming up against Hawthorn or flying and going to the finals, looking at possibly top 4 if they beat us by enough. And we send out a team of young kids and a couple of older blokes who are probably on the end of their careers and knock them off. And how was the feeling? We've seen the players jumping on each other on the ground. We've seen the high fives and hugs in the coach's box. How was it afterwards?
well, for me, that was my first win. So to sing the song after the game was massive. But Barry Hall, obviously, kicking that goal after the siren was huge. It was huge. I think we celebrated for a few nights. Just it was the last round. Celebrated pretty much like a grand final. We had a good time together. But yeah, it was just, I suppose that actually I played when I got played my first game. I played the next 8 games straight. Got dropped the week before. Come through the twos. I think I did all right, and I actually rocked up to the twos training at Springvale training on the Thursday, thinking I was actually playing for Springvale, and they're actually going, Wolfie, what are you doing here in Raven? I said, I'll try. And they go, no, you actually got picked. So that was a Thursday. I didn't even know. So yeah, got picked for the Friday night game and went in there, and it was awesome. I mean, like that's when all the young boys, the Kaziskis, the Rewalts, the Milneys, what was that back in 2001? And that was the future. And you could see 3 years later, we missed out on the grand final by a kick. You could see there was something happening there. So, but yeah, thank God for Barry Hall kicking that goal off the side. I got to sing the song after 8 games of not singing it. But yeah, all good.
Your next game was round 5, 2002, and again an amazing game for the club. We had all of those kids, Dalsano, Rewalt, Milne, all that you spoke about. It was a draw, that the tactical stuff around it, but obviously at the end you've taken the intercept mark, the play on Banana. Can you take us through that moment and obviously the very, very nearly winning goal?
I still cop it to this day. Don't worry about that. Like, don't worry about that. I even got brought up the other week when I, obviously spoke in front of the Western Saints. I actually look at it now. If I kicked the goal, no one will remember me. So it was so dramatic. I hit the post. But I remember that night, and I remember the next day too. Being in every single page, back page, front page of the paper, crying wolf. I've still got papers or clippings and that stuff. But yeah, that was a game that we had. I think the Herald Sun that morning actually had, I think, about 8 of us on the front page or back page, whatever, and pretty much all the players that played less than 10 games for that night. We're playing Sydney, who are pretty much up there, and I think the whole dramatic thing was we shouldn't even been any close. Like, should have been probably 10 goals lost, let alone a draw. So I still this day, I wish I kicked the goal, but I still think that I did the right thing, played on. It was just unlucky. I just remember having someone in the corner of my eye, I sort of check side it and pumped it into the post. But yeah, so I drew the game. But yeah, still to this day, I still get told, you drew the game, Wolfie. And I said, mate, well, how hard is hit the post? It's actually harder than kicking a goal, so I must be pretty good here. So, but yeah, no, it was good, and that's So that was pretty my highlight. I mean, it's not a highlight, lowlight, but that's what I think many supporters still remember me. I got a mate over here that I met when I moved over here, and he's a massive St Kilda supporter, like massive, and he reckons he broke the TV. Now we're best mates, so. Yeah.
I was going to say I was sitting right on the boundary, right next to the point post, and I think I can still remember the sound. So it's pretty memorable.
It's killer, but yeah.
So you had the win against Hawthorn, then the draw in round 5 against Sydney the following season. I think it'd be another 10 games before you had another win. What was that period like? You mentioned some of those young blokes that are coming through, but what was the message, I guess, in that early period under Grant Thomas? What was the message, I guess, within the club when you're kind of suffering loss after loss after loss?
It is a bit of a killer. Obviously, you'd love to come out off the ground and sing the song every week, but you always say, like, there was we knew where we were going, we knew where we were travelling. Obviously, you could see 2 years later, like I said, made the final, whatever. It was patience. It's hard to lose every game, but you can see improvement. I mean, I was an Essendon supporter growing up, so I saw a lot of success. I'm St Kilda through and through now, and I feel sorry more for the supporters now, being a St Kilda supporter, thinking that I would have loved to win some more games and that, but you can see the process. Just like this year, there's a process, and it happens. It takes time or whatever, but as far as a team goes, we had so many good players. I was playing with legends. Robert Harvey, Lowy, all of them, Berkey, whatever. You walk off the ground and you go, how do we not win? But I think it was just a process of getting the young boys up for the next couple of years, and it sort of spoke for itself. St Kilda were pretty good after that from 2004 onwards. So it is hard. I mean, you want to win, but you could see where Grant Thomas was coming from. He was very positive coach, and you knew that something was going to happen, and it did happen. We just obviously unlucky he hadn't won a premiership still, but it was massive.
So in the time you're there, we're obviously aligned with Springvale for our seconds. How did you find the relationship between the two teams? Because we know eventually that broke down and we moved to Sandringham, and Melbourne joined up with what is now Casey. How did you find the time that you were there, between the teams, or was there much communication with the coaches saying, "Oh, we want this player to play this way," or was there any of that actually happening?
Yeah, for me personally, I don't know. I reckon it was a bit hard because obviously us as the AFL listed players will come in on a Thursday night, and you got these Springvale players that, league players been playing league for many years, and they'll get pushed out by like me or someone else, and it does come a bit like it was a bit. Yeah, there's a bit of friction going on, you know what I mean? It wasn't like you go out on the Saturday, you only train on the Thursday night, and you're not trying to be selfish or whatever, but you're trying to play for yourself too, because you want to get back in that St Kilda side. So it was a bit, like personally myself, obviously you enjoy playing footy, but it wasn't as enjoyable as it should be, because there was a lot of friction, because there was Springvale players that probably played in premierships years before there was Alliance and that, and they're getting kicked out because AFL listed players are coming in and they get number one priority, and we just come in and train on a Thursday night for an hour or so, and then pretty much get a gig. So you felt a bit sorry for them boys as well, missing out as well. So, and then obviously the reserves players will miss out and probably not get a game altogether because the league players are coming back into the reserves sort of thing. So, yeah, footy's footy, but yeah, I don't think it was as enjoyable as it should have been, personally.
You kicked 4 against Geelong late in that year when we were 38 points down at three-quarter time and lost by a point. We were steamrolling them in the last quarter. You played all right against Sydney the week after that as well. Did you feel, 2002, you'd had a bit of a run at it going into 03, that you were in reasonable shape, and unfortunately injuries just took hold?
Yeah, no, that was my best year. Obviously 2002 was a good year. Geelong, yeah, it was a good game. It was a good comeback. Again, lost by a point, whatever. But, I felt like that year I was starting to make a mark. 2003, I played in the first game, I think it was against Kangaroos, round 1, and then went on from there. And then I think I broke my jaw against West Coast in that year, and that's pretty much where it went downhill. But I went to London, because we went to London at the end of 2002. It was probably the best trip I've ever been to. Went over there for 2 weeks. It all trained for all the professional athletes. It was the best bonding sort of session ever. It was awesome just to get on a plane and go to your comfort zone and train hard. For me, it was just unlucky. I would look at it now, and I'd never ever done a soft tissue injury in my life. It was always just long-term injuries that set me back for weeks, which was a killer.
I was going to ask you about that 02 preseason and what that was like for you, kind of, I guess, coming off the back of that, 03 preseason, coming off the back of that 02 season that was pretty strong for you. And then you started the year pretty strong. You mentioned that first game against the Kangaroos. You played the next couple, and you obviously, by then, a pretty kind of settled spot in the senior team. But what was the view coming into that 03 season, and then to have that injury against West Coast that kind of ruled you out for another 12 weeks or so after that? What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was hard because, I thought I was starting to make myself, because I'm a sort of a guy that probably, I put a lot of pressure on myself and probably didn't back myself as much as I could. And, playing in front of thousands of people, I always thought maybe I'm not good enough. That's just personally myself. But when I was positive, I'd go out and and I started believing that year I'm good enough to play AFL footy after the back of 2002, and start off the first few rounds, and then broke my jaw against Westco. I think we had a really good win that game too. So I remember broken jaw and lying in the club rooms and hearing the song, and we had a win, and that's when the boys started to ramp up. But it's just, like I said, I keep saying, like, I only played 30 games, and I wish I could have played 200 games. You got the likes of Stevie Milne, who's built like a bloody shoelace and never gets injured, and you got all these other players. It's a lot to do with luck too, but at the time you don't realise. So actually after your career, and like I said, I was just happy to play one AFL game, let alone 30, and play for a great club for St Kilda too. Like I just, want a lot of success for them this year too. I'm, as a supporter now, and I'm a pretty bad supporter, I'll walk out if they lose just quietly. But that year I thought I was going to make my mark, and I was, but I don't know, just unlucky with injuries.
What goes through your mind during those periods? You said that you already kind of you had troubles, I guess, believing in yourself. But what goes through your mind when you're away from the club for that period of time? And you made your way back, to your credit, you made your way back into the team later on in the year. But what goes through your mind during some of those periods?
You have your days where you go, well, nothing's falling your way or whatever. But I've got two boys now, and I always say never give up. Well, I never gave up. I got drafted twice, let alone any kids in their life want to get drafted once. I got drafted twice because I never gave up. Always put in the effort. I always sacrificed a lot of things. And like I was in the rehab room quite a bit. I was on the bike next to Robert Harvey quite a bit. Never ever obviously went on the bike as hard as him, because when he was on the bike there's a big massive patch of sweat on the ground. But I just kept going and thought I'll just keep giving a crack till the day. Obviously, I remember when Grant Thomas rang me, and he sort of knew, and he goes, "Oh, we need to have a meeting at the end of 2004, because obviously 2004 didn't get a game because injuries again." And he was actually just quietly pretty emotional, because he was just like, he really did rate me. He backed me a lot, but he just said, that's part of footy. You got to rotate the list. And I was shattered, but I was proud of what I've done at the same time, so it's what it is.
Final one from, sorry, H, I think I cut you lunch there. Go.
That's all right. That's all good. So basically you're talking about luck of playing games and numbers and this sort of thing, and you just going through the numbers you've had. It's quite interesting reading in some of the anomalies that jump out. You go, first season you win one game, second season you win two games, third season you win three games. That third season you play 6 matches, but you only play against 3 different teams and have a 1-1 record against all 3 teams. It's a really strange sort of way to look at those numbers. But from all the games that you did play, then we've talked about the Hawthorn game, we've talked about the Adelaide game. Is there anything that sort of might jump out at you as a memory and go, oh, wow, I remember that really strangely enough for some sort of reason that maybe isn't one of the big things that we do all remember?
Obviously I was happy with me 4 goals against Geelong, like that. But no, I suppose my best game was, not best game, just being a part of Stewie Lowe's 300th against Melbourne. Growing up, like I said, I was a supporter, but Lowy, Berkey and Harvey, to carry Berkey off the ground and just be around those champions was my proudest moment. I can honestly say all I wanted in my life was to get a footy card. I got 1 footy card. I was stoked, and it's next to Rewalt and Robert Harvey and Hamill and all them. And you just go, you feel honoured to be in that sort of, obviously that sort of list. But as far as footy goes, playing, but just being around a legend like St Kilda, honestly, Moorabbin and St Kilda Footy Club is absolutely a beautiful club. I just want success for supporters for the next 10 years, hopefully. So, pretty much. But, playing for legends is my biggest thing. So I'm proud when I see Rewald on TV, I'll go, yep. I'll say to my boys, I'll play with him, sort of thing. And it's small, but it's big in my in my eyes. You know what I mean? So, and my boys love Rewell, so it's good.
The final one before we let you go, obviously you got to speak at the function before the Fremantle game, which is a good win. And I just guess getting that sort of feeling as well, and still being, around the club and knowing that the club will reach out and those sorts of things, I guess it does prove that you are a Saint for life.
Yeah, 100%. I love doing that. Like I wasn't a big talker. They'd actually give Wolfie shit because I wouldn't say much in meetings back then. But now I've opened up as I get older, and I love talking about my time at St Kilda. And it's not a massive time, but I've been there, done it. And yeah, at the Empire Bar, you got those passionate Saint supporters over here, and I can't stand West Coast of Fremantle. Like I can't stand them. And that was pretty much. I've been to quite a few games over here at the stadium with my boys. Never seen St Kilda win, and we won that game. And mate, I was stoked. So listen to that song after the game was huge, and they're just so passionate. Like the supporters at the Empire Bar were just so polite. They come up, they obviously kept talking about hitting the post and stuff like that, but pop that all the time. But yeah, I love being involved, and I'm actually proud to say I'm a past player, and that's big to me, sort of thing. So I'm proud. I'm very proud to be an ex-St Kilda player. It didn't matter if I played 1 game, 30 games, 400 games. I'm just proud to be part of it and in the history pretty much of the club, which is massive.
And we're proud to have had you with us on the podcast as well. Thanks for jumping on. Thanks for the contribution. It was always good fun over those journey. You were there for a lot of those key moments. And, thanks for jumping on tonight.
No, thanks heaps. Mate, brings back memories, makes me happy. Cheers.
That was Daniel Wolf. Was a good servant of the club, and that was a really good chat. We love to tell stories on this podcast and share some of those experiences with players, be it the superstars. We've obviously spoken to, Robert Harvey and Stuart Lowe and Lenny Hayes, but also some of those stories of guys that were good players that had that sort of cult figure status, Brett Moyle, Daniel Wolf, Mick Dwyer, those sorts of players over the journey. We look ahead to Essendon, a Friday night game. The Bombers have spent basically the entirety of the season in disarray. They had their 150th celebration last week. It's probably not a bad thing to play them a week after that. You would think that there'd be some sort of an emotional come down. They were okay against Carlton. They never really threatened the result, but they were okay. It's a game we simply have to win. Having a look at the ladder, given Melbourne's semi-collapse over the last 3 weeks and the doors that's opened up for other clubs, it now means if you look at all of the ladder predictors and where sides are at, you're going to have to win 13 games to make the finals, possibly 14. There's no way, realistically, that we would make the finals with 12 wins. It has to be 13 at the very least with a good percentage. So that makes results like this one a non-negotiable. We've got games like Essendon, West Coast, even Hawthorn, where we'll start favourites. And then we've obviously got to pick up a couple of others along the way, be it you split the Carlton and Bulldogs games, and then you pick up wins at Marvel against one of Sydney, Fremantle or Brisbane, or preferably a couple. So, but a loss against Essendon clearly makes that task much more difficult. So you have to bank it. You should bank it. 6-day break coming back from Queensland, some tired legs. They're all factors, but I still feel that our defensive system should be too organised for them to kick a winning score against us. It should be, unless that system breaks down. Darcy Parish will be the interesting watch for them. He was subbed out. But nearly everyone that gets subbed out these days plays the following week. I guess the good news on our front is that Zach Jones has been cleared of hamstring damage. You would think on a 6-day turnaround he might be touch and go, but it may only be the one if he misses a game. We will miss Daniel McKenzie. We will miss Mitch Owens under the concussion protocol. So Hunter Clark, you would think, surely plays. I think Wanganeen Malera needs to play based on ball use. And I think that Zach Jones would still miss. And then you look at Billings as a logical inclusion, but even Windhager might need a rest. And even Mason Wood might need a rest because he was a bit sore as well. So I think there'll be at least 3 changes, and that Billings, Clark and Wanganeen Malera will play. Billings had 32 in the VFL. Cooper Sharman kicked 4, so he'll come into consideration as to whether we were right to drop him or not. I think Butler played pretty well. So, yeah, there's a few things to work through, H, but the bottom line is we can't be getting beaten by this mob.
It's you just sort of sweat going into this one. Now you're going, we can't let Essendon ruin our year.
They've done it before.
Yeah, I know, and that's the thing. It'll keep you awake all week. This game, it's going to be, it's just that game you look and go, we should win this game. There's no reason we shouldn't win this game. It's basically the only reason we don't win this game is because of we are St Kilda, and that's basically the reason. You're looking and going, oh, it's just it's a nightmare sort of thing coming up. But you just think we've just got to get back to those basic things we've done good this season. Look at what we've done right. Replicate those things. We made mistakes on the weekend that you go, that sort of thing that against good teams are never going to somehow, I guess, bounce back our way. You make a mistake against Brisbane, they punish you. That's as simple as it is. You make a mistake against Essendon, you sort of go, you got a 50-50 here. They're going to punch you or they're just going to hand it straight back to you. It's a real game that do we now need to go, this is what is going to set us up for the rest of the season. Get out there, make a statement, go, no, we're not out of this. We're not finishing here. We're not basically saying that we're going to be there at their pointy end. We're going to show what we can do, the football we can play that we know will beat the teams we have to beat later on. Let's get it right now. And it's a situation of Essendon, I guess, as you're saying, against Carlton, played some good football. Carlton are in the same sort of area we're in. So that you sort of think that, okay, they've had a good game on the weekend. They kind of have an idea of what they're going to be coming up against. String a few surprises. Like change a couple things up and think, okay, let's try this thing. Let's try this thing. But let's work it into the game plan that we want to play. And if that works, then we can roll that on further into other teams. It's an opportunity to make sure we've got what's right, but it's not enough to try too much and then stuff it up from there. So yeah, let's really make sure that we go out there, get these 4 points, make the statement of our season is launching from here, and let's get there. Let's get these wins before it comes down to the last game needing to win by 10 goals. It's so crucial that that makes you quite nervous, to be honest. So yeah,
I think you're spot on. This is a statement game. I think it's all of those things that you have both mentioned that so often, it's Essendon, and it comes down to Essendon, teams like Essendon that kind of derail us. And this is our moment for us to say, not this year. You're not going to do it this year. This is where we have to say, like you said, H, we're going to set the tone for the rest of our season. And we know it's not going to be easy. We know the rest of the year is tough, that it's a tough fixture. It's a tough schedule. There's a bit going against us, but control the things that you can control. And we're a better team than Essendon. And let's make sure that we go out there on Friday night and show that. Go back to basics, play our style of football. We have nothing to be scared of. We know that we're better than them. We've proved over the season so far that we play good football when we play our style of footy, and we know that they're no good. We know that they're no good. So let's go out there from the first bounce, smack them in the face, and set the tone for the second half of our season. Because these are the games that, if you want to be legitimate going into finals footy, into September footy, you've got to beat teams that are lower than you on the ladder. You've got to beat teams that are struggling. And we have to do that. We've got to put the foot down at some point and say, we're going to bury you. We deserve to be there later in the year, and you're not worthy of us. And this is the type of game that we have to do that. And if we don't do that, if we can't do that this week, then maybe we don't deserve to be there in September. And maybe guys like Kane Corns are right. that maybe the second half of the year will see us potentially drop out of the 8. But this is the type of game that we have to win. This is the type of game that we need to win. It is the epitome of a must-win game of football. And if we don't, then we are ripe for the picking from every other club in the competition, and every other club is going to come into games against us thinking that they can beat us, and we can't afford that.
Yeah, I think if you look back over history, so 1993, our decline kind of started in the Essendon game. 98, late in the year, certainly, when they beat us by 3 points at Waverley. 09, obviously, they broke our 20-game winning streak, which kind of planted the seed of doubt. 2011, our decline was almost confirmed when they beat us. 2017, we won 4 in a row. They belted us on a Friday night and we never recovered. Last year was probably the classic example. But the common theme with all of those matches was that the writing was on the wall a little bit before those games, and it kind of almost drove the message home, those Essendon losses. That's not the case this time. We're not in a wobbly position like we were in those matches. There aren't cracks appearing in the group. We should be compact enough and mature enough and connected enough to get through this game. I mean, I'm one of those people that if I look at the fixture at the start of the year, if you could give me one wish, it would be that you would win this game to beat Essendon. Of all of the teams in the competition, of all of the fixtures, if you could guarantee me one win at the start of the year, it would be this mob. Not necessarily for those reasons, but for a number of them. So it's a game we have to put away. And as you say, we're not worthy if we drop games like this. So you got to be careful. They've got match winners like Stringer, and obviously Wright can kick a bunch of goals, and Draper's a handy player, and Merritt's a very good midfielder, and all of that sort of stuff. They can play well, but on all of the evidence of the season, we should have their measure. So fingers crossed that remains the case.
They're a very possession-happy team. That's one thing we need to be really looking at. And as I was talking about with the Brisbane game, giving Brisbane space. Well, we give Essendon space, they're just going to keep moving the ball around between themselves. And chasing that all night is going to wear us out. Let's get up in their faces early and save that time of chasing them from mark to mark to mark. Let's just get up early. Get up soon as they've got the ball. Get up in their faces. They turn the ball over when they're under pressure. And we've seen that against a lot of teams. So don't give them that free space. Don't give them the opportunity to just keep playing on. Push them back into our forward line and really, really nail them in. They'll turn the ball over. We'll get more shots at goal. Don't give Peter Wright the opportunity to kick 7 goals. Don't give Stringer the opportunity to pull a goal out of nowhere from the boundary. And that's the sort of things they do, and they're the sort of things that will hurt us on the night and beat us. So beat them before it gets to them. Don't let those match winners have the opportunity. Let them kick it to each other, I guess, across the face of our goal, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Don't give them that outlet. So it's at the back of the pack, they're going to be hovering like they do every single time. Again, I think I said a few weeks ago that Geelong, it's the same game plan every week. Essendon are no different. They play the same game every single week. Doesn't matter who they're playing. They just want to move the ball around between themselves and move it up the ground, handball by handball. And, well, I guess Darcy Paris sends it backwards and then they send it forward. So it's a bit of a, don't let them have those outlets at the back of the pack. Just tackle like we've done other weeks, because that'll beat them. And that's where we start from.
My gut feel is that, we've probably had our defence has been the equal most organised in the comp, probably with Fremantle this year. So I struggle to see how they would kick more than 60 or 70 against us, but you never know. They might be able to sort of break through. But if we can keep that compact, then we should be okay.
The other thing to keep in mind, sorry, Parker, before you continue, and I know that we'll probably do something separately a little bit later in the week for Spud, but historically, without going too much into Spud's game, historically, we don't turn up to emotional nights for the footy club, whether it's milestone games or tribute games or whatever. we just don't turn up, and whatever that is, that needs to change. And this is the perfect one to do it.
Yep, we lost the Spud game last year against the side we didn't realise was as good as they were. We got the chance to obviously redeem that this time. That's so St Kilda, obviously the first of our awards. Nick, did you have one of those that sort of stood out? They're usually a bit easier to find after losses.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I know over the last few weeks, and thanks to, I guess, our Twitter followers who always tag us in stuff as it comes up, and that hashtag's been going around a little bit. And every time a player goes out for a number of weeks, we get a tag saying they're due to come back against us. And I remember a while back we got a number of them saying Joe Danaher will play his comeback game against us for sure. That'll be so St Kilda. And yeah, I mean he was an impact player for the Lions. He was really good. He didn't have a lot of the ball, but he was really impactful with it. And I thought, just going back to the well of guys coming back against us and having an impact, that just felt so St Kilda, and it had to be Joe Danaher, right?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. That was always going to be the case. You just sort of knew it. H, have you got one?
I think it's going to be as simple as we lose Owens just before halftime. We lose McKenzie taking mark of the year at the start of the third quarter. I mean, probably not going to be mark of the year, but I've seen on one show it already. It's one mark of the week. I mean, that was just courage, that mark. He hadn't had a lot of the ball, I guess, but he had played very well so far. Every ball he touched that night had actually done something quite nice with. So losing him then, and yeah, it's just not our night to in a game where you go, okay, they had a few injuries themselves, so they were slightly short too, that we managed to outdo them with having more injuries than they did. So it was just a painful thing, thinking that had we had the legs, we probably overrun them. So it's just a tough one.
One of the things around those two guys is we've seen it, a number of times this year, of guys getting concussed doing pretty much nothing. Going for a mark or trying to kick a goal in the goal square, or literally just in a marking contest. It seems pretty innocuous. And I think, as much as we don't want to see it, those two guys doing absolutely courageous acts, and to see stuff like that out of Mitch Owens is great. I think we've got a ripper. We've spoken about Windhager and Wangan Malera, Jack Hayes a bunch of times over the course of this season, but Mitch Owens looks an absolute ripper, and I think he'll be back in the team sooner rather than later.
I think someone said we needed the Port Adelaide doctor, because they somehow miraculously brought two back from the dead almost. It was amazing to see him run back out and going, okay, those two were gone for all money. So yeah.
Putting that broadly, I agree. I think it was our best ticket to winning the game. It felt like that Brisbane were coming off an arduous road trip on a short turnaround. We had to hang with them, knowing that we run games out well. If we were close enough at three-quarter time, we would overrun them, and that advantage was taken away due to misfortune, which is very St Kilda. Our blueprint to victory was actually executed. We were within a kick. Brisbane had missed countless chances to keep us in the game, but our chance of overrunning them was taken away by misfortune, which is very, very St Kilda. Looking at some of the other awards, the Jason Blake Award, who gets the unsung hero.
Oh, as we were talking before, I think you have to give to Carl Wilkie. Got no recognition for what he did on the weekend. And as I said before, if he didn't play down back as well as he did, we lose by so much more. And that's as easy as I can put it. He continues to go under the radar, and yeah, I mean, in a losing effort, he gets completely ignored, which I don't think he deserved to.
Nick?
I went Tim Embry. I think all year he's been under-recognised. I think he's almost the barometer of our footy club. He's kind of the spiritual leader, I guess, especially missing Jack Steele. This guy just does everything. He does everything at a really high standard. And he just works his butt off week after week after week. And he doesn't get recognised because he doesn't have the 20 or 25 touches. He doesn't kick the 4 or 5 goals. He doesn't take the spectacular marks or, as you talk about Max King, mark the ball at its highest point and be in the highlight reels and all that sort of stuff. But Tim Membry just works his ass off for us week after week after week. And I think I tweeted early in the game that he might be my favorite player in this current list, the way that it is, just the way that he bleeds for this footy club is just something to watch and behold. And I think it's we speak about privilege, and we heard Daniel Wolf talk about the privilege of playing for the footy club and, loves being a supporter. I feel like we've spoken about the privilege of watching Paddy Ryder play for us. And I almost feel the same way, maybe to a lesser extent, but it's a privilege watching Tim Membry run around in red, white and black, because I feel like he is completely and 150% one of us, that he bleeds for the club like we would. And he would do absolutely anything possible to win a game of footy or to win a premiership. And I just feel like he doesn't get the recognition either from the footy media, the footy world, and sometimes even from St Kilda fans for the job that he does for us week after week.
I agree. I thought he was very good and probably summed up by the fact that in the middle of the pandemic, when the club wasn't even able to train, he joined us on the podcast to give fans an update. And I think that's an indication of being, one of us and someone who bleeds red, white and black, that he jumped on and did that without hesitation. And I think, he's a heart on his sleeve type player. Mine's Ben Patton, who I have nominated before. I think he was all right on the weekend. He made one mistake where he was caught holding the ball, although if you watch the replay, it was knocked out of his hand before he was tackled. But in any case, I thought he was fairly solid for us defensively. And I think he started the season slowly, but he's worked into the year pretty well. And he's been an important little stopper for us in the back half. So I like how he's going, even though it hasn't been mentioned too much. The Shannon Knoll Award, Nick, whilst you've got the floor, where did you want to go with that?
It's a tough one. I think there were probably a couple of guys following this week, and I know that there's been a lot of chatter around Brad Hill and his performance. It was probably his worst game for the year, but I think at this point, I'm probably willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he's had a super year. I think he's second in our MVP award,
close to, yeah,
second or third at the very worst, I think. Mason Wood, I think, is one that we've touched on a few times. I think it was probably his worst game for the year as well, and know that he's a bit banged up and may get a reprieve this week, just purely based on other guys and forced changes and that sort of stuff. But Mason Wood, we've spoken about him being on the bubble, and I think that potentially if there weren't the McKenzie, the Owens, Jones, that potentially Wood's the one that goes out this week if we don't have those injuries. If he's in this week and really whenever he comes back, if he's out, he needs to put his best foot forward every week, because we have that competition for spots that we haven't really had before, and we've spoken about it a number of times. But he needs to make every post a winner. And last week, and probably for a couple of weeks, he probably hasn't done that. He's been good. He's been a good soldier for us all year, and I don't want to take that away from him, because he's been solid. He's been serviceable, and he hasn't done a lot wrong, but he also hasn't taken every opportunity given to him. And I think that it's time that he might get a rest this week. He probably deserves to be in the team off the strength of his season. He's been good and he's done the right things, but he's missed opportunities. He hasn't taken his chances when he's had them. And I think that he may get lucky this week, just purely based on some other blokes being forced changes. And if he is playing, then I think he needs to put his best foot forward and have a good game this week.
H.
I've got to look at the forward group as a whole this week. Max King would take 1,000 marks a week if he had a bit of help behind the scenes, before the ball gets into the forward line. If you watch the corner of the screen as we're kicking into the forward line, you see 3 Brisbane players standing around him, basically not giving him an opportunity to even launch at the ball. Where are our forwards that they should be on? Where are we as a group? Well, why aren't we in there keeping those players out of his way? There's no point in having a massive forward if he can't even get in here. You just see Andrews had an easy job on the weekend. Like the commentators absolutely gave him the raps on the weekend, saying how good he was. He hardly had to do anything. The two players who stood in front of Max did all the work. They basically Andrews just had to worry about if it got past him, then he had to go spoil. And the few times that he actually got out free, he ended up with the ball and taking marks. But it just frustrated me the whole night watching him. Just three Brisbane players just forming basically a triangle around him, and he had no chance of getting anywhere near it. We need our forwards giving him a bit more support. We need him in there blocking the way for him to run, blocking getting the hotspot and opening it up so he can move into it. But he's just getting crowded, and there's absolutely no opportunity for him to do anything. So let's help him out a bit more. Big opportunity this week for him to kick a few. So let's give it a go. Let's get the defenders out of his way.
What the honourable mention, it sounds harsh, but again, we're sort of working towards perfection. But again, clutch goals. Jack Higgins, he's kicked some clutch goals this year and he's missed some clutch goals this year. The one on half-time that would have put us 3 goals up. Max King, we won the Adelaide game because he kicked clutch goals. But he's missed clutch goals against Port Adelaide and in this game, obviously missed one in the second quarter, missed one from long range in the third, but then missed that one in the last to put us in front. That might have been a last hurrah for us to get a bit of momentum. So more often than not, unfortunately, we're probably missing those rather than taking them. They're getting better in that space, but they were still crucial shots missed. But this one's going to be ultimately very harsh because this player has been our best player this year, but just one little thing that's crept into his game in each of the last 3 weeks for Jack Sinclair, who's a star, but against Adelaide he did it, against North he did it, and against Brisbane he did it, where a couple of times he's hand grenaded the ball out of defence, where it's just landed in his lap and he's just thrown it on his foot. He's a beautiful kick of the football when it's direction, but when it's aimed and he's looking to hit targets, but he's hand grenaded it a few times. Just grab it, throw it on the foot and kick it straight back to the opposition. So, Jack, you're a star. You've had a wonderful year. But the reason why you've had a wonderful year is because you're taking care of the footy. That's not taking care of the footy. You're better off absorbing the tackle or trying to feed it to someone. Don't just throw it on the boot and get the ball away from you in defence. That's the only thing you've done wrong all year, but it's only happened in the last 3 weeks. So just a little bit, slightly more composure, I think, in that space would be the order of the day. But that would be my Shannon Knoll. We tick towards Essendon on a Friday night. It is, again, Friday night exposure. We played the Giants a few weeks back, but now we get one on our own home turf and a very, very important game. We'll reconvene. As we said, we'll drop something a bit later in the week around Spud's game. So stay tuned for that one, probably Wednesday or Thursday. Hope you enjoyed this episode and our chat with Daniel Wolf. Go Saints. We'll catch you next week.